All right, Lions fans, we are live. Sunny days in Detroit, week 2, post game. Lions defeat the Bears 52-21. They get back on track. Throw up a 50 burger on the Bears. That's always a great feeling. A lot of good things we saw. A lot of things that still need to get cleaned up. A lot of things that I think they could do better, that they need to improve upon. But in this league, whether you blow, that's not comfortable. Tried sitting on a bar stool here. Whether you blow somebody out, you beat them by 1, you beat them by 2, you cover the spread, you don't cover the spread. It really doesn't matter. It's not college, it's the NFL. Wins and losses are what get you into the tournament at the end of the year. And that's the Lions did. Let's start out. We'll start out with the good because it's easy to point out. Jared Goff had a lot of time to throw. Unlike week 1, Jared Goff had time to throw. The running game statistically was there. I want to say as a team, they averaged almost 6 a carry. For the most part, Gibbs was 7.8 a carry. Montgomery 5.2. St. Brown 3.5 on those 2 carries. So statistically, it was where we want to see the running game. I think it doesn't totally pass the eye test. I think it should be better. It could be better, but the stat sheet in that regard looked good, and so it got better throughout the game. I think early on, running game wasn't looking as good, and then as that defense got more and more and more exhausted, you saw those holes open up a little better. Like I said, still not really where we want it, but better. We saw them run with some success. They were able to get 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 to Gibbs, 1 to Montgomery. That was good to see. Talking to Paul, another contributor here at Sunny Days in Detroit, he had actually raised a great point to me that it seems like, at least after yesterday, kind of going to be a little bit of the reverse of last year. And last year, the run game was what was setting up the pass game, a successful pass game. It seems like we're going to be kind of the opposite this year, or at least right now. As Graham Glasgow is kind of figuring out center, as Tate Ratledge is figuring out the NFL as a rookie right guard, it seems like the pass game is going to set up the run game a little bit. But nonetheless, they were able to accomplish both things yesterday, and they didn't turn the ball over doing it. Jared Goff throws for, I want to say, over 300 passing yards, right? What was Jared at? Jared was at 334, 5 touchdowns, no turnovers. They were able to keep him upright. I think he got sacked once, and that's a pretty good D-line the Bears have. Montez Sweat is definitely a force to be reckoned with, and he's going to be there in Chicago for a little while now. There's some guys on that defense that could rush the passer pretty well, and the Lions were able to buy themselves some time, get the ball out to Amon-Ra a ton. He had over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jamison Williams had 2 receptions, but over 100 yards. He got himself a touchdown. They were able to spread the ball around a lot, which was really, really, really good to see. Isaac Tesla, once again, one-handed grab on the sideline. The guy gets the ball once a game, but it is a Sports Center top 10 every time he does it. So those are really good things to see. Defensively, they were able to get some sacks themselves yesterday. Aiden had 1. Davenport had 1. And we had 1 more in there. Muhammad had 1. So as a team, and Brian Branch had 1. Forgot about that. The pass rush wasn't great. Later in the game, that's when the sacks started to pick up, the QB pressures. And that was happening because the Bears were playing from behind. The Lions offense scored so much that now the Bears kind of had to abandon that run game, and they were throwing the ball a heck of a lot more than they want Caleb Williams to throw the ball. And that's what opened up the opportunities for his D-line to eat a little bit, get some sacks. Not really where we want to see them so far as a pass rush. So that I really can't say the pass rush was that improved. But the offense was improved. The offensive line was improved. The pace of game that they were able to play with on offense. I mean, the Lions offense went back to what they were last year. The Lions offense was dictating the pace of this game. the entire game. They impacted how the Bears ran their offense, obviously how the Bears ran their defense. At times you saw the Bears getting a little desperate there. That's how some of these guys got wide open. It looks like maybe 7 different guys caught the ball yesterday, 8 different guys. That's really, really, really good to see. Obviously, St. Brown scored 3 times was also incredible. And, Ben Johnson's got a long road ahead of him. And I think he knew that taking on this job. I think he expected a little more out of Caleb Williams, but that's his problem. He had a great gig here, left it to take on a head coaching gig. And I think if he wasn't so vocal in the offseason, I don't think the Lions crowd would have given it to him as hard as they did, because it was 4 great years of service he had here. He set records with this offense, and you can't ignore that. But at the same rate, it feels so good to see this offense pick up where they left off without Ben Johnson. I think that was such an important thing to see. And I think it kind of instilled in that Chicago fan base, like there is a long way to go. Maybe this isn't a playoff team yet. But listen, it's week 2. It's September. The most important thing about September is that you find a way to come out of it 500. There's a lot of injuries that come up throughout the season. September, no one really knows what they are yet. I think Johnny Morton and Kelvin Shepard got a ton of criticism after week 1, and I thought it was a little unjustified. I thought the players on the field failed week 1. I thought the offensive line failed. I thought Jared Goff failed. I thought the defense as a whole kind of failed. I mean, he gave up 27. And I thought Dan Campbell failed week 1. And they went back and they corrected a lot of those issues. Now, as I said, not everything is fixed. That D-line still is suspect. They stopped the run pretty well, but they were not really they weren't really able to rush the passer, and that's got to be fixed. And we'll talk about that a little more as we go on here. But definitely a big shout out to Brian Branch. Brian played his ass off. Forced, I want to say, 2 fumbles, had a pass defense, had a sack to his name. He was all over the field. He was truly playing sideline to sideline. This is a guy that on on paper is probably a strong safety, but in actuality, he's like a hybrid kind of linebacker. Reminds me a little. I'm going to say in the style of play, I'm not comparing, but in the style of play, it is kind of reminiscent of a Troy Polamalu. And you see that out there. I mean, this guy's supremely talented, and when he can keep his emotions in check, right? Unlike last week, throwing a Green Bay helmet off to the sideline and cursing guys out and flipping off the crowd, when this guy can kind of keep himself in check a little bit and feed off the crowd, feed off that energy, and let his emotions flow through him but not control him, he's an unstoppable force on the field. He is a guy you're always looking for. Shout out to Kirby Joseph. He had himself a pick yesterday. Terrion Arnold looked substantially better. Gave up a couple of plays, but that's going to happen. Second-year corner for the most part. He looked really good. Looked much improved. Had himself a pick until a terrible flag was picked up, or a terrible flag was thrown. But other than that, much improved. Defensively, as I said, the pass rush isn't there. It's Aiden Hutchinson, a little bit of Tyleik Williams, and that's really it. Marcus Davenport went down. He did come back into the game. I know Dan Campbell spoke today, said the status isn't really clear, kind of on what the long term of this injury is going to be. I saw ankle and I saw shoulder for him. So, we have to see. But this is Marcus Davenport. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't played a full season, I want to say, since 2019, 2018. He's got a ton of talent. You saw it yesterday. When he's on the field, he's definitely a force. He's a problem for left and right tackles. But he's always hurt. And it was this time last year. It was actually week 2 last year that we lost him for the season. And, the best ability you can have in this league is availability. And Davenport just hasn't really given that to us. And clearly Clearly, this Lions organization, this coaching staff, has a heavy belief in him. As they re-signed him and they chose to kind of put that money into him and not Zadarius Smith. But the availability is an issue and it can't be ignored. And if we kind of look around the league here, and I've got it up in front of me, the Buccaneers and Texans have just kicked off their 7:00 first Monday night game here in week 2. As we look around the league, we all see that Joe Burrow goes down yesterday. Looks like he's going to get surgery on his toe. It's going to be out 3 months. It's going to be very hard for the Cincinnati Bengals team to kind of piece together a season, and it's you would assume they're going to give it a couple of weeks here, but come deadline time, they're going to have to take a hard look in the mirror and let some guys go. One of those guys we all have our eyes on is Trey Hendrickson. He's been the sack leader the past 2 seasons at 17.5 sacks both seasons. He's not great against the run, but he's fantastic against the pass. I guess he's not a Micah Parsons, but he's not far off in the pass rush game. And, Brad Holmes can try to avoid the question all he wants, but it's going to resurface in the coming weeks. And rightfully so. I mean, we criticized 2 things going into this season with this team, right? And a couple of things, the coordinators, losing of the coaches, like there's nothing you can do about that, right? When you have success in the NFL, other teams are going to poach your staff. We've seen it with the Eagles. We saw it with New England for 20 years. In recent years, we see it with the Chiefs. Every team, it seems like, is hiring a Chiefs assistant every offseason, right? So there's really nothing you could do about that. That's the nature of the game. But what you could do is you could have addressed some of these holes, like the interior of the offensive line, like the pass rush, and going into the season with 3 ends that looks like you're now down to 2 because Marcus Davenport's probably not going to play on Sunday. That's the one thing we all kind of look to with Brad Holmes, and I think you have a right to criticize him here. I mean, it's not like you're not throwing him under the bus. You're not calling for the man's job, right? He's clearly the best general manager in the city of Detroit right now. He's probably a top 3 general manager in the NFL when you look at who he's drafted, who he's brought in here, how he's helped turn this entire organization around top to bottom. But the one thing you can really criticize him of is outside of drafting Aiden Hutchinson, he really has not successfully. He's tried to address the pass rush, but he really hasn't been able to do. I mean, the only thing you'll give him is Aleem McNeil, and then drafting him in the 3rd and then re-signing him last year. But Aleem is out till at least Thanksgiving with that torn ACL. So something has to be done about this pass rush. I don't think this team can wait until Thanksgiving to get some help. I think they need some help now. There's not a lot of talent that's out there on the free agent market. The one guy was Zadarius Smith, and it just wasn't a culture fit here anymore, right? So I think we're all kind of, as a fan base, we should be looking at Trey Hendrickson, and whatever the price tag is for that, the Lions need to pay it. If that's a 1st-round pick, if that's a 3rd-round pick, if that's a 2nd and a 4th, I don't know. Outside of giving up players that are going to play for you now, you need to find a way to make that deal work. In the next 6-7 weeks, whatever the deadline is, because there's a limit to how far this team can go. Mistakes. You could ride an offense as much as you want. Eventually that offense is going to make mistakes. Guys are going to fumble. Guys are going to go throw picks and drop balls, and O-linemen are going to miss assignments. I mean, you can only have so many, I wouldn't say weak links, but question marks, right? So right now, it looked better, the interior of the offensive line, but it's still a question mark, right? Until we see this team look really good in the interior of the offensive line, like 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row, I think it's still going to kind of be a question mark, right? We're still going to kind of hold our breath each week. And the same goes for the pass rush. A really good litmus test is going to be Monday night here coming up, going to Baltimore, playing the Ravens. Obviously, a very talented team. You've got you've got a two-time MVP award winner playing at quarterback. You've got a really good defense there. You've got a 250-pound Derrick Henry pounding it, up the middle there. So we're going to kind of get a really good look at what this D line looks like. And I think in terms of stopping the run, the combination of Tyreek Williams and DJ Reader and the rest of this linebacking group, I feel really comfortable with those guys. When it comes to a pass rush, when it comes to, 3rd and 10, I don't feel comfortable. I don't like what they have. And you can manufacture a pass rush. You could find a way to kind of get creative, but you could only really take it so far. At some point, your front 4, 5, 6, 7 need to be better than their offensive line, need to be better than their blocking scheme. It's a helmet to a helmet here, and you got to find a way to win those one-on-ones. And the only guy out there that's consistently winning the one-on-ones, consistently driving guys back, is Aiden Hutchinson. Davenport, like I said, kind of shows flashes here, but on a consistent basis, there's no one else. And so it's important that they find an answer. And I really think the only answer they're going to find is at the trade deadline. And if it's not going to be a major piece like a Trey Hendrickson, then I think this organization's got to find a way to trade for 2 or maybe 3 guys. Because as we saw last year, guys go down, guys get hurt. And, kind of the same goes for the interior of this offensive line. If one of these 3 guys in Glasgow, Ratledge, or Mahogany, if any one of those guys go down, what's the plan? Skipper can fill in for a half. He could fill in for a few plays. He could even fill in for the day. But I don't think you feel comfortable going forward with Stan Skipper playing guard or center. I don't think Gio Manu is comfortable there. Not at this point. He was drafted as and considered a project. He was a late guy, a late draft pick that was called a project. That really sizes up, I think, more to play tackle than guard or center. So it's going to be really hard if one of those guys go down. So they need to have a busy deadline. But today, it's a victory Monday. You got to be happy with what you saw, with what this team did yesterday. And this was a get-right game. We should be blowing out teams like the Bears. I think, as I said, a really good litmus test is playing Baltimore next week. I'm very interested to see, what this team looks like and how they line up. If they come ready to play 2 weeks in a row, as they should. You beat a team like Baltimore, I think everyone, because I think most people throughout the league, most of the people in the media that saw, they said like, okay, these guys are back. This looks like last year's Lions. This is the playoff team. This is the, NFC North contender. But I think you beat a team like Baltimore, and you get the attention of kind of the Green Bay Packers a little bit. I think you have their attention regardless, but I think kind of the Packers media and maybe the Vikings media, everybody in that part of the country kind of looks back and says like, oh, okay, so it looks like it was more of a bad week 1 than it was anything else. But you got to come out and you got to win that game. So I think, unless I've got anything here in the comments, I don't think I do. Great week 2, great bounce back. Looking forward to seeing what they do this week against Baltimore. We will do a preview show Monday night or maybe Friday. Not entirely sure. I think we're going to have Paul on for that. So we'll see. And the Sunny Days Media Football Show is going to continue Saturday night, 8 to 9 p.m. somewhere in that ballpark. So stay tuned to the social media accounts from all of us here, and we will see you on Saturday. Until then, let's go Lions.